I don't know if this is true for any of you guys, but when I was growing up, I always wished I was in an age of exploration or something new, right? And I don't know, I don't know if you guys grew up at the same time as me, but like if you grew up anywhere in the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s period, like I think the assumption that was kind of made for a lot of us was like, okay, like all the discovery, all the exploring, all the new stuff happened back in, the days of Christopher Columbus. Like that's like what you're taught in school. And then, now we're just like we did it. Like we did the progress parts, we fought all the wars, and like everything's just in this stable place now. And like what your world is gonna be is, just living through that, trying to make a new, better iPhone every couple of years and just living, like progress is done, right? I think that was kind of the assumption that a lot of us came into the world with. Obviously, in the last 10 years, that assumption's been completely uprooted in many ways, right? And in many ways where I think a lot of people are even going like, man, I miss that stability. But I'm not talking about that. I don't want to talk about that, right? I want to talk about how this assumption was always wrong in a way that is a little bit more optimistic. Because I think it's easy, and I think what a lot of people are doing now is thinking about this topic in terms of like, oh man, everything seemed like it was set up for like a good world, and now it's just gone. Now it's bad, it's gonna get worse or whatever, and like all these things. But I think in another way, in a very real way, there is an age we're in where a lot of opportunity exists through what we're watching this right now on, through the internet, through these platforms as they continue to develop. I want to pitch to you this idea that right now, the time we're living through, is closest to not so much, obviously it's its own time, right? I don't like sometimes when like people will be like, and I'm guilty of this a ton, people will be like, oh, we're living through like the 1920s again. Like, I don't like that kind of thing, right? I think it's like, this is its own time, we should treat it as such. But in terms of the way the internet's about to change everything, right? I would say that like, if like 1860 was like the boiling up point right before you hit 1900 and you hit industrialization, like the modern world comes out of the 1900s, I would argue that the time we're living through right now is the boiling point leading up to the time right before we go through not industrialization, but digitization. And I think the first thing a lot of people are going to say in response to this is like, nope, already happened, right? I think people have the assumption that the internet is already here, right? Which I mean it is, right? You're watching this on the internet. Like I get why people make this assumption that we're already in the time of the digital age. And I think largely we are. I think we'll look back and similar to, again, how as much as the early 1900s were the explosion, that's when we get the Industrial Revolution, we were industrializing before that, right? I think similar to that, we will look at digitization the same way, right? I think 2020 will be a big point. That's a point that we all like to cite now, right? Of like, oh, we all went on Zoom and then we never got off Zoom. Like, that's a huge thing that people say. But I think that sometimes, and this is the kind of the core of this idea, I think we have an ability to overestimate how much has happened. Like, I don't think we realize just how young the internet is and how small these times are gonna be now in comparison to where it's gonna go, right? I'm gonna use an example of this that's related to like the media, right? Because I think that's a very direct example. I think it's one we can all relate to. So this is the last election, right? Everybody right after it finished was calling like the podcast election, right? And I thought it was really interesting because if you lived through 2016, like that election, two elections before that, that was the first election. It's very similar articles were going around when that happened, right? Of like I remember distinctly being told, oh, this is the first ever moment, just how the television affected the election of JFK. This is the first moment that the internet affected election. That was in 2016. Then by the time we get to 2024, 8 years later, everybody's like, no, this is the first internet election. And I'm willing to bet, maybe it won't be the next one, maybe it'll be, if there's even ever an election again, I'm willing to bet it's only going to get more affected by it. Because the truth is, both those were internet elections. Both those were points in which the internet affected everything, right? But at the same time, it's true that the second one here dwarfed the first one, right? In terms of the embrace of new media and all these things. And it's only gonna get bigger, right? We have this weird thing now, I think because of that, like the way I started this video talking about how we had the assumption that like all the exploring was done, all this stuff was done. I think because of that, we have this weird assumption that like the second something happens, we name it, we dub it right away of like, this is this thing, right? This was the first, like, 2016 hits, first ever internet election, 2024 hits. No, this was the first internet election. Like, instead of like taking time and looking back, just because of how fast things move now, we love to name things the second they occur, right? And I think that this is a consequence of this. I think that that's one of the consequences, is that neither of those are probably going to be the maximization point of how digital media affects elections, right? It probably won't be at all. And any way that digital media has affected the real world is only its infancy, right? This medium is so new. And now, and the reason I cite these elections, right, is because, moving away from politics, moving away just from media and how media influences the world, right? Institutions are sort of fading right now. I don't think that's a hot take. I think for a lot of people, we're in a weird point where like, people are really questioning, like, do we need all these things around us as far as these institutions go? Like, what is this world supposed to look like? A lot of them are growing, like, as things move faster, as we were alluding to before, I think a lot of people are looking at a lot of these old institutions who are slow and, not fast to the punch, and they're falling behind, they're growing outdated. And because of this, new ones are being built, right? And I'm going to draw another comparison here again that's like a imperfect metaphor, but I think works somewhat well too, right? If you go back to the last time that media had an overhaul this big, Hollywood, right? The invention of the medium of film, right? Now we're in the medium of content, right? That's our new thing now, right? But back then we were in film, and film came out, I mean, like really late 1800s, but let's say it got big around like, well, actually, we'll draw a clear comparison. 2004, you get Facebook. Let's say 1904 is when film really starts kicking in. I think that's pretty accurate too. I think that's when like the Edison Labs recordings or whatever really came out. But let's not nitpick here. Obviously, this was an explosion, right? Similar to the way it is now. The movie was huge. If you look at movies that are unfortunately ingrained in cinematic history, like Birth of a Nation, right? You get that in the 1915, I want to say. And I remember that was the first movie historically where everybody was like, oh my God, these movies are something special. Terrible pick, by the way. Terrible pick to be like, this is the one where we're going to market as movies were something special. But yeah, I mean, they showed that movie in the White House. They're like, this is where movies end up being a big thing. Not too dissimilar from how in 2016 with that, it was like, oh wow, this internet stuff's a big thing, right? Obviously, later in the 1920s, let's draw that to right now, you get Charlie Chaplin, like all these huge things happening, right? The point here is that all of these giant milestones happened before we got modern Hollywood, right? What would you call the golden age of Hollywood? I think technically it is really early in the 1900s. I think a lot of people like to refer to it as that. But let's not kid ourselves as if the highest grossing movie in the world didn't come out 6 years ago, right? Like, it's bigger than ever. And in the same way that the institution of Hollywood, according to my knowledge, I'm not the most well-versed in this kind of thing, but from what I understand, didn't really exist in 1920, especially not how we know it. It's not inaccurate to say that the internet version of this won't exist here. And it won't just be the internet version of this, just like it's not just Hollywood. There are thousands and thousands of production companies, and there are all these companies who contribute to this thing that makes culture. The internet will move the same way. Will it look the same? No. Will the institutions be the same? No. We're entering a different era, obviously. Like, that's what, nobody could have predicted what Hollywood would look like before it came. Just as this next thing, as the new institutions are built, nobody could predict that. But the point is, we are in a time where new things are being created, right? The internet is in its infancy, and someday when this is how the world works, when it's, we're saying the internet runs the world now, but this is nothing in comparison to what it's going to be. That I'm willing to bet on more than anything. When we're in an age where truly the digital eclipses the physical, which I think is unfortunately inevitable, unfortunately inevitable unless somebody builds something that could work counter to that. I think on a trajectory right now, it's unfortunately inevitable. I think that though it's also like we are in a point of opportunity. We are in a point of discovery. And even as I was a kid in the early 2000s, thinking like, man, I wish I could live in a time where something new was being built, I didn't realize I already was, right? In the early 2000s, Facebook was being built. Like that's when these things started coming about. And I think it's wrong to say that we're not gonna see just more of this happen. And I think, I don't know, there's two ways I think you could go with this conclusion. I think one, it could just be a fun observation. And that's kind of what it is for me. I mean, I'm not gonna go start a company and try and be like the internet's Hollywood. I'm not really interested in doing that. But I think if you are somebody watching this who's like, man, I want to build something like that, like you're here, the opportunity's here, you know what I mean? Like so many people are looking everywhere for where the opportunities are, not realizing the internet's right in front of them, right? Like this is only gonna get bigger. People are like, man, I wish I started, like I hear this all the time, like I wish I hopped on Vine in 2015 or whatever. Like that's something you'll hear a lot. Or like I wish I got on YouTube or like Twitch during COVID, right? That would have been so cool. Like you hear a lot of these things and it's like, dude, you could hop on YouTube right now and you're still 50 years ahead. Like we think of Charlie Chaplin as early in Hollywood, man. You know what I mean? Like everyone, we're still in the infancy. You still are in the early things. Someday they're gonna look back on this era of the early 2020s or whatever, early 21st century, and the people who are on YouTube right now are gonna be named in the same breath as the people that were on Twitch 2 years ago, and there's people who were on Vine in 2015. You're just here, so it feels like it's all moving so fast right in front of you, but like, we are in the middle of it right now. Like, I just think the internet's so cool, and I think people who don't see something in that are wrong. I do. I think that, you know, this is a thing that's worth being bullish about. Do I have my critiques of the internet? Of course I do. We all do. You should, right? Do I think it's perfect? No, I don't. Of course not. But will I always be like optimistic because this is a cool new thing that we all get to be a part of? Yeah, I will. And as much as I have these critiques, I also think since this is a cool thing we all get to be a part of, there's one time in history to hop on the train and make it go in the direction you want it to go, and that is right now. So that's my take on that, guys. That's my take on the internet. This is the painting. So we're trying a different shading technique of instead of making, you can see it on the palette. And I'm actually really glad we have this palette cam now. Because I think this is like a perfect episode where you like, it's actually, like the colors on the palette influence what I'm doing here like a lot, right? Because instead of doing, like you'll see in the past what I've done is like a light green, medium green, and then like a dark green, which this is the new dark green, but there was an old dark green there, right? Instead of doing that, I just did, and then the same thing would happen of like a light red, dark red, pink over here, which is now covered with purple, right? But instead of doing that, I just did mid-tone red, mid-tone purple, pretty dark green. I'll still call it a mid-tone though, like, it could definitely be darker, and then just black, right? 4 colors only, throwing everything down, black colors, and then only adding in shadows of the black to try and make this like a super high contrast, super dark look. That's what I wanted to do here, right? So I think I want to heighten the blacks or darken the blacks. I want to make them even darker, but I think this is cool. I like the colors here a lot. So go check us out on the TikTok and the Instagram. Until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Talk episode 295. Yeah, 295 every morning, painting and talking with you all.